Permit me also to recognize the presence of the Okwiri of the BUNYORO Kitara Kingdom, whom I have had the pleasure of meeting on 2 different occasions. And of course the officials of the Mubende BUNYORO Kingdom, and of course the citizens of the BUNYORO Kitara Kingdom, and also citizens of the Republic of Uganda, and the professors who are here present to participate not in a lecture, but in a conversation. Lectures can be very arrogant, and sometimes it is wise to avoid them, and to engage in conversations around subjects which are known to us, but we engage in them because they continue to visit pain on us. The Africa that we are having conversation around, it is an Africa that has known pain. And the BUNYORO Kitara Kingdom has been a victim of the pain that has been visited on Africans. Many of us will know that this continent was invaded and her sons and daughters were taken away to distant lands. Indeed, the very presence of my friend, Dr. Wallace Williams, who now claims the citizenship of Trinidad and Tobago, is a testament to that his ancestors were taken away from this continent into the distant lands in the Caribbean. And when slavery had lost its shine and sheen, the colonialists invented yet another project. The project that took place in Berlin in 1884 and 1885, where the continent of Africa was divided into the territories that we now know as the 54 countries of the continent of Africa. When they came here in the 1800s, what they did, particularly the British, and it is not only the British came to this part of the world because it was their share, so to speak, out of the diabolical conference that took place in Berlin. While they were here forcing our leaders to sign treaties, their cousins in France, from France, were also doing the same in different parts of Africa in the western part. Their cousins from Germany were also doing the same in Dahomey, in what is now Namibia, in what was then known as Tanganyika. They were also in Cameroon, and their cousins from Portugal were also doing the same in what is now Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Angola, Mozambique, Sao Tome and Principe. Their cousins from Belgium were doing the same in what was then known as Rwanda and Urundi, and they were also doing the same in what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. Their cousins from Italy were doing the same in Libya. They were doing the same in Somalia. Their cousins from Spain were doing the same in Equatorial Guinea. They were here, and what they did is that they devised different ways of dividing us. In fact, the British were so blatant as to say and adopt a policy that they referred to as divide and conquer. So they came here and they made you believe that the Baganda were your enemies. They made you believe that the Basoga were your enemies. They made you believe that the people who had the same color and culture like yourself were your enemies. And we believed. It was in direct rule. They set brother against brother and sister against sister. That is how colors they were. They took land that belonged to one brother and gave to the other. They even took mountains, Kilimanjaro, and gave themselves as gifts. And our lakes they named after themselves. Narubare, they called Lake Victoria, and we still call it Lake Victoria. They came here, and even the lake for which you had a name, they called Albert. The lakes for which you had a name, they called Edward. When they went to Zambia, they called them Livingstone and Victoria and abandoned Mosi Otunya. They came here, and even you and me, they gave us names. So that you are no longer Asimwe, but you are Donald. So that I'm no longer Otieno, Lumumba, I'm Patrick. That is how they did it. Our minds were corrupted. And when they had corrupted our minds, we fought against them. We fought against them here in Uganda, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Ghana, in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, in Nigeria. We expelled them, but they never went away. They are still here. They are still controlling us in very subtle ways. We use their language. I would have preferred to speak in Kiswahili or Bunyoro. We use their names. We worship in churches that they have created. We abandoned our gods, our God. Even the name of our God they took away from us. This is who they are, and they have not changed. Let you not be cheated. So that today, when we are present here and we are talking about our grievances, we must identify our enemies. Our brothers are not our enemies. They are our enemies. You know, when you go to South Africa, sometimes I hear my brothers and sisters in South Africa claiming that those Africans from up north are their enemies. They forget that their enemies are the whites who constructed the apartheid regime. You know, when I come here to Bunyoro Kitara Empire, and I hear the Bunyoro talk about Empako, in my mother tongue, which is the Luo, we call it Pakruok. And I know that when we were moving from Sudan, my people settled here. And those of you who are familiar with the history of the Bunyoro Kitara Kingdom, they were here for some time. And indeed, when we were moving down to what is now Kenya, the Banyala, seeing us, referred to us as Omunyolo, because they thought we were the Bunyoro. So that even today in Kenya, those of the Luhyas call the Luo Omunyolo, thinking that they are the Bunyoro. That is how connected we are. So that when we talk about territory, you must remember that territory must never be the basis of conflict. Indeed, our leading historians tell us that one piece of land could be used by several communities. The cow herder could use the same land as the tiller of the land. In those days, before the white man came here, we did not have title deeds. They came here and they introduced the title deed. They came here and defined our lands and gave some of them land such as Mairo land. And after they left, we still talk about Mairo land. They came here and did everything that they could to divide us. And that is why our continent remains weak, because we are divided. because they are making us to fight shadows, and we can never win against shadows. They are creating for us enemies who are not our enemies. And we must, in the nature of things, do that which is good and right. You know, sometimes we in the continent of Africa judge ourselves very harshly. The post-colonial African state, including this country called Uganda, is just slightly over 60 years. Uganda regained her independence as Uganda in 1962. That is only 61 years ago. There are people in this assembly who are older than Uganda. And they are alive. And they live for another 20 years. So today, when we are talking about the grievances and the conflicts that make us unhappy and angry, those conflicts, let me tell you honestly and candidly, some of them will not be solved in your lifetime. They'll be solved long after you are gone. Your duty is to always remind your generations that there is a conflict to be resolved. You know, when I travel across the world and you meet people of Jewish tradition, even those who were born 7 years ago talk about the Holocaust in 1940s. The grievance is passed from generation to generation. And if you think that the problems that afflict you today will be solved in your lifetime, you will be disappointed. But if you know that the problems are intergenerational, you will not be disappointed, because you will recognize that it is a relay race. A friend of mine tells me, and I agree with him, that when you want to eat an elephant, you cannot swallow the elephant, but you can eat the elephant piece by piece. The problems that confront us are like the elephant. When we want to eat them, we eat them piece by piece. And after a long time, we will sit down when we are satisfied, and your children and children's children will tell a story that there was an elephant that confronted us and we ate it. And people will wonder, how did they eat the elephant? And we will be able to tell them piece by piece, generation by generation. And that is why when I look at the history of the BUNYORO Kitara Empire, and I met the BUNYORO Kitara Empire as a Standard 5 student when we were learning the history of East Africa, when we were learning about the kingdoms of Africa. And I remember learning about the BUNYORO Kitara kingdom, and I remember learning about the Buganda kingdom, and I remember learning about the Busoga and the Toro and all these kingdoms. And I remember being taught about Omukama Kabarega, who was seized in 1899, and you know the story, and who resisted the British and who was taken away through Kismayo ultimately to the Seychelles, and who, as you know, died on his way here in 1923. He did a great job, and history remembers him for resisting our enemy. Sometimes you don't have to win the battle immediately. Your contribution is that you fought a good fight. Last night, I spent a night at a facility called the Kabarega Resorts. The Omukama Kabarega is dead. Long live Kabarega. Because he never dies. When you do good things, what happens is that your mortal remains appear to die, but you never die. You who are his progeny are alive, and you keep him alive. And we are here not because we have the monopoly of wisdom. We are here because we know we have a problem which is elephantine. And we know that combining our wisdom and our efforts, that problem can be eaten. And we are going to eat it piece by piece. And we are going to eat it with wisdom. We are going to recruit those who are our allies. We have too many enemies. We must not create new ones. What we must do is to get our allies. The Bunyoro, a strong Bunyoro Kitara empire is good for Uganda. I'm a student of history and I know when the kingdoms were abolished. I know when the kingdoms were reinstated. I know how the kingdoms
very free to wake up and dance our culture. This is our culture and we dance. I feel very proud when I appear in the video dancing with you. Thank you. Mr. DJ, give me that tune. Okay,